Since we began our stand-up strike, the response from auto workers at non-union companies has been overwhelming. Workers across the country, and especially in the South, are reaching out to join our movement.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
The UAW is, they have announced the largest organizing drive in modern history. And Barry Eidlin mentioned on Twitter that and Barry Eidlin is a historian and former union organizer. He mentioned that given the location of many of these auto plants being organized, this is also the most serious effort to organize the U.S. South since the CIO's Operation Dixie in 1940. Dang. So this is a huge deal, enormous ramifications for the South, for the auto industry, and you know, another reason that it's important is that you know, despite all of the kind of popular understanding about manufacturing being outsourced and there's no manufacturing in the United States anymore, manufacturing still contributed 11% of the value added to the GDP in 2022, as compared to 8.5% for education, healthcare, and social assistance. So still a very big part of the economy. Any path to labor union power in the United States is going to have to come from, going to have to go through the manufacturing sector and through the U.S. South, because the U.S. South has been the Achilles heel of the labor movement for ages. Politicians have constantly been using us, working people in the South, to undercut working people in other parts of the United States, and exploiting us and squeezing more profits out of us. And so the UAW is making a big bet on workers in the South and across the country, saying, you know, enough is enough, and we're going to take more of the value that we're creating. So let's listen to this announcement that they put up last week.
If you're an auto worker in this country, it's time to stand up. Everywhere you look in the auto industry, corporate profits are soaring and workers' wages are falling behind. We've shown the world that this industry is harming workers and consumers to the benefit of company executives and the rich. And it's time that the working class did something about it. But it's not just the big three. It's across the auto industry. CEOs are raking in billions while auto workers' real wages are falling. Car prices are through the roof, but workers can't afford to buy the vehicles they make. Wall Street is making a killing, but our communities are being left behind.
Tesla is set to announce their third quarter results, but that they still aim to keep annual target deliveries of 1.8 million vehicles for the full year.
Rivian boosting its full year production. It's a company also second quarter revenue coming in better than the street was looking for.
But what about the other automakers? Let's talk about Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, Nissan, Subaru, and Mazda. The Japanese and Korean six made nearly twice as much as the big three in the past decade. A whopping $470 billion in profits, $500 billion, with over 40% of their revenue coming from their North American operations. Don't auto workers at Toyota, Honda, Hyundai, Nissan, Subaru, and Mazda deserve a record cut of those record profits? And how about the German three, Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes? They've made almost the same as the Japanese and Korean companies, $460 billion in the past 10 years. Do Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes workers not deserve their fair share of this booming auto industry? Big three auto workers at Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis just won big raises, more job security, and cost of living adjustments for one simple reason: they're organized.
Without a deal, automakers went on strike at midnight.
With targeted strikes at 3 facilities, a Ford plant in Michigan, a GM plant in Missouri, and an Ohio plant for Chrysler owner Stellantis.
The UAW was underestimated the whole way, because when the game was over, it was just a real beatdown. The workers win.
To all the auto workers out there working without the benefits of a union, now it's your turn. Since we began our stand-up strike, the response from auto workers at non-union companies has been overwhelming. Workers across the country, from the West to the Midwest, and especially in the South, are reaching out to join our movement and to join the UAW. So go to uaw.org/join. The money is there, the time is right, and the answer is simple. You don't have to live paycheck to paycheck. You don't have to worry about how you're going to pay your rent or feed your family while the company makes billions. A better life is out there. It starts with you, UAW.
All right, so there it is, folks. UAW.org/join is where, and so with that announcement, they have dropped cards in every single non-union auto plant in the country, more or less. And so if you are a non-union automaker anywhere, you can go to uaw.org/join. And what comes up is a list of 13 non-union automakers. Those are the non-union automakers that they are targeting. And so you scroll down, it's like in alphabetical order, looks like. No, not quite alphabetical order. But scroll down, find the company that you work for, and you can stand up and sign your union card. And in each section where it has cards for each non-union auto company, it gives you a breakdown of some important statistics and stuff. And, so relevant for Huntsville, where we have a Toyota Mazda plant, Toyota in the last 10 years has made $250 billion in profits over the past decade. $250 billion in profit, not revenue, profit. Profits are up 30%. CEO pay is up 125%. Meanwhile, Toyota has just offered a 9% raise to convince Toyota workers not to organize. So the UAW says it's time for Toyota workers to stand up and fight for more, and it's the first one. So if you're in Huntsville, uaw.org/join. That's the first company on the list. You can sign your card, and that says, you want the UAW to be your union, and it'll give your information to the UAW. They'll be able to reach out to you for more. But yeah, really, really, really important stuff. And I have been heartened by folks in the area saying that they were going to send this. They were going to send this this announcement to people that they knew that worked at Toyota here in Huntsville, and the reply came back from this person: "Oh yeah, I've already signed my union card, and so have all of my other coworkers. So yeah, we're way ahead of you, buddy. We've already signed cards. So yeah, I mean, hugely consequential announcement." Obviously, this is going to be good for Toyota workers here in the area and non-union auto workers across the country. And if you're a Toyota worker here in Huntsville, you're listening to the program, I would love to hear from you. 844-899-8857 is the phone number. And if you call in, and you're a Toyota worker, also send us a text message saying, hey, this is my phone number. I'm a Toyota worker here in Huntsville, and I want to talk. That way we can make sure to get to you, because sometimes we don't have time for calls, but we would there are other times where we want to make sure that we're able to get to certain people or certain groups of people that are relevant, that we think that our audience would like to hear from. So Toyota workers here in Huntsville, 844-899-8857 is the phone number, 844-899-TVLR. But one thing that a lot of folks will notice about this campaign is that it's a lot different from kind of the standard operating procedure over the last 10, 20, 30 years of union campaigns, which is slow, methodical, don't go public until you've hit like 60, 70% of people in the plant already signed cards, because you don't want to draw attention to yourself before your organizing committee is ready and has inoculated a bunch of people. And this organizing campaign is not that, right? They have just announced to every non-union automaker in the country, we are coming for you. We're coming from you. We're coming for you, and we're not hiding it. We want your workers to sign cards today. That's what we're looking for. And so the reason for that, and Barry Eidlin has a great Twitter thread on this, really kind of laying it out in a very eloquent manner. The central hypothesis, and this is Barry talking, which is now going to be tested in practice, is that workers across the auto industry have been galvanized by the UAW's stand-up strike at the Big Three and are now ready to organize. So, rather than go about this, the kind of traditional, slow, methodical, one plant at a time in secret, patiently building up a campaign there, the union sees its job today as amplifying a wave that is already in motion. That means broadcasting the message that the union is ready to fight and inviting non-union auto workers across the country to join them. And so, that's the gamble that they're taking, and we're going to see if it's going to pay off. I'm very hopeful that it will pay off. I'm very hopeful that it will. And so we'll obviously see.
Hey, 5 seconds. Just wanted to say that this is only possible because of our donors. If you want to see more of this, then consider donating yourself at tvlr.fm/donate.
Luis Leon, friend of the show, staff writer for Labor Notes. He, I think, undoubtedly, it's just, it's so good, I don't think it's really debatable that Luis wrote the definitive article on the announcement. So you can read his article at labornotes.org. The title of the article is Auto Workers Direct Momentum Toward Organizing Plants Across the U.S. by Luis Feliz Leon. And the reason that it's the definitive article, in my mind, is that no other article that I've read includes so many voices of non-union auto workers. There's just no other article out there that you will hear from as many non-union auto workers. It's really amazing the work that Luis has been able to put in and the information and the testimony that he's been able to put in this article. It's really great. And so I'm going to read a little bit from it. He says that at Rivian's electric plant in Bloomington, Illinois. Oh, and before we get to those testimonies, I want to highlight that there's already movement, right? There's already campaigns catching fire even before the announcement was made official. So at Rivian's electric plant in Bloomington, Illinois, workers have already built an organizing committee and surveyed 1,000 of their coworkers on major job improvements and run petitions demanding longer breaks. There are about 5,000 workers at this plant. And local news in Kentucky have reported that according to the union, one of the strongest campaigns in the country is at Toyota's Georgetown, Kentucky assembly complex, where 7,800 workers make the company's iconic Camry and highly profitable RAV4 and Lexus ES. So lots of, there's lots of movement already, and the announcement was just made official. And so the plan is, according to Luis in Labor Notes, officially, once 30% of workers at any given plant have signed union cards, workers there will go public with their campaign, right? So the broad campaign is public, but at each plant, once 30% have signed cards, then that committee is going to go public, say, hey, we're public here. We've got a campaign here, and we're making moves. And some plants have already met that threshold, according to the UAW. And so we could potentially induce that the Tesla Fremont, California plant has already met that mark, because they have gone public and said, there's an organizing committee here, we're forming a union. And that would be huge, because that plant employs 20,000 people. So if they've already got 30% of the cards signed at that plant, that is enormous. At the 50% mark, workers are going to rally their coworkers, families, and neighbors and community leaders. And then as soon as 70% of the workers at a given plant sign cards and have a committee made up of workers from every shift and job classification, they will demand voluntary recognition of their union. And if the company refuses, the workers will file for an election with the National Labor Relations Board. So that's kind of evidence that it's already taken off, and some of the plan going forward. And now we'll get to some of the worker testimony that is so important when looking at this campaign. So at Rivian, Williams said, this is a Rivian worker in Illinois, Williams said that workers' main workplace concerns revolve around safety and time off. Injuries include a crushed hand, a broken foot, a sliced ear, and broken ribs, according to complaints filed with OSHA. Workers attribute these injuries to the breakneck pace of production. And there's worse to come. Just this month, the company raised its production forecast for the full year by 2,000 vehicles to 54,000 units. In 2022, workers often put in 12-hour days, 7 days a week. But Williams said the company changed its schedule to 12-hour shifts, 4 days a week, in anticipation of Illinois' one-day rest in 7 Act, where an employee is entitled to at least 1 day off in any consecutive 7-day period. That law went into effect January 2023. So that's,
So we're back to fighting for a weekend for these guys.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a really, and that shows the importance of having, a legislature that doesn't hate you and that doesn't want you ground into powder like so many Republicans do. So, Rivian has found other ways to monopolize workers' time, including reducing their sick hours from 80 per year, 80 sick hours a year, which is like 2 weeks. Like,
on a 12-hour shift? Do they count the whole 12?
Yeah,
like, what's going on
that's
there?
crazy. You get 80 hours. So that's even if you get a full 40-hour work week there, you get max 2 weeks off. If they count the 12 hours, you were scheduled for a 12-hour shift, and then that 80 hours is going to run out really quick, right? Okay, so they cut that in half to 40 hours a year in January 2023. That's insane. Meanwhile, salaried employees have unlimited paid vacations, according to a screenshot shared with Labor Notes. Workers have also filed complaints with OSHA over a lack of fire exits. Insane. At Hyundai in Montgomery, Alabama, a 12-year team member, Gilbert Brooks, has had organizing a union on his mind since he was hired. He had been a member of the Steelworkers for 11 years at the Goodyear Tire Factory in Anniston. And at Hyundai, 3,500 hourly, temporary, and contract employees assembled the Santa Fe, Tucson, and Santa Cruz, the Genesis GV70, and the electrified GV70. We build 1,500 cars a day and 500 cars a shift. That's pretty crazy. When measured by the speed of cars produced, this is the second most productive plant in the world. That high productivity, he says, should be rewarded with higher wages. Absolutely. He earns $28 an hour, which will go up to $30 an hour in January after the promised wage hike. That's after 11 years at the company, right? The company is also offering a $4,000 bonus. New hires start at around $19 an hour. That is not much. Over the past 3 years, Hyundai's profits have soared 75%, while its vehicle prices rose 32%. We are underpaid and overworked, Brooks said. His point of comparison is what his ex-wife will earn at GM's Spring Hill plant in Tennessee. She'll go from $25 an hour to $35 an hour right away under the new UAW contract at GM. But the main sticking points are safety and respect on the job. He said the company forces workers to do jobs that really require 2 people and changes work rules on a whim, and the result is injuries. So he talks about some of the injuries that he's had and how in 2014, when they first tried to unionize this plant, the company didn't even offer light duty for injured workers. But once word spread around the plant that a unionization campaign was afoot, Hyundai used a mix of carrots and sticks to beat back the union drive, including offering light duty and bonuses. I mean, offering light duty is such a, that's actually law. Like, that's a reasonable accommodation. You have to do that. And so the fact that they weren't doing that is pretty bonkers.
Love to move them goalposts
really,
a little bit further.
Yeah, just so gross. There's testimony from Mercedes-Benz in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, talking about how Alabama gave $300 million in tax breaks to Mercedes-Benz, and that, quoting from a New York Times article, saying that is 18 times what Tennessee paid for a Nissan plant in 1980. This was in 1996. We gave them $300 million in 1996. That's 18 times what Tennessee paid for a Nissan plant in 1980, more than 7 times what Tennessee paid for a General Motors Saturn plant in 1985, 4 times what Kentucky paid for a Toyota plant in 1985, and 3 times what South Carolina paid for a BMW plant in 1992. Really crazy stuff. And so, I love seeing those workers' testimony from Luis's article. Really important. And so this is really really a big deal. hopefully, this may be kind of the signal that the fortress unionism, as Jesselson coined it, is coming to an end, and the time is to come out of our fortress. And his thesis in the essay Fortress Unionism was basically, at the time, like a decade or two ago, look, we're in a period where we can't organize on a mass scale. The momentum, the material conditions are just not there. And so the job of the labor movement is to do fortress unionism, is to huddle inside our castles, protect it at all costs, do everything we can to protect the gains that we've made, and be ready for when workers say they want to organize. And so that's kind of what unions ended up doing over the last 30 years. And we've talked to Chris Boehner about how we are the most wealthy labor movement in the history of the world. We have more money at our disposal than any other labor movement in the history of the world. And so, if we want to take fortress unionism seriously, it's like, well, this is the time to come out of the fortress, I think, and make an attack. So uaw.org/join if you're a non-union auto worker. uaw.org/join. Really big stuff here. You just saw a clip from the Valley Labor Report. We are live every Saturday morning from 9:30 a.m. till 12:30 p.m. And we pride ourselves on keeping all of our content free to everybody so that we can talk to as many working folks as possible. If you support the work that we're doing, you think that it's important, you think that it's good, then consider making a monthly contribution to the project, and you can do that on our website, tvlr.fm.